You've probably heard that saying, you are what you eat. But what if I told you you could blame feeling blah on the foods that you're snacking on? Dr. Candice Seti is a food psychologist and the author of Shatter the Yoyo. She's an expert in what she calls therapy on a plate, and she can break down why our moods change when we eat certain foods, for better and for worse. On this Dying to Ask, eat this, not that, to feel better and ward off depression and anxiety. How to make that mind-body connection when it comes to what we eat and how we feel. Take Dying to Ask on the go by downloading the audio version on Apple or Spotify, or you can watch it right here. Dr. Seti, welcome to the Dying to Ask podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
Oh, it's really nice to have you. And I find what you study and what you're an expert in so interesting. You're a food psychologist. What does that actually mean? And how did you become that?
Honestly, it kind of came about through my own experiences with food and weight loss and diet dependence. As a psychologist, I had always specialized in working with eating disorders and body image issues and things along those lines. But then through my own experience with weight loss and, again, diet dependence, I learned how rampant this issue was and how difficult it was to overcome, and how much of weight management in general was tied to psychology and our mental health and feelings of dependency and our cognitions and our behavior. And it was never really about knowledge of calories. It was about kind of understanding our behaviors, understanding our triggers, understanding our relationship with food, understanding how we use food emotionally. And as I sort of dug into that for myself, I realized how valuable this was for everybody else, everybody I was working with. And there was nobody really looking at this or addressing this or bringing this to the psychological field. And so it just became something I got very interested in, wanted to learn more about, and wanted to help provide to the people that I was working with. So I kind of dug in a little more in my own education and kind of went back and got a bunch of certifications in all different areas so that I could sort of bring this whole picture to the people that I was working with, because I found it so valuable.
What was the first thing that you learned that was like that big light bulb and you were like, oh my gosh, we've never made the connection between this and this?
Oh gosh, there's so many. But I think it's really about how emotional food is for us, for all of us, right? I mean, you look at what food actually is, right? And what food is supposed to be for us. And it's supposed to be sustenance, right? We're supposed to eat to fuel our body. I mean, that at its core, that's what food is.
I mean, you're really not supposed to think that. It's like gas for a car, right?
Right, exactly. That's what
it's not.
That's not really how any of us define our relationship with food, because at such a young age, food becomes so emotional for us, right?
Yeah.
It becomes social, it becomes celebratory, it becomes a way we treat sadness. I mean, when it becomes reward, right? When we're a little kid and we win a soccer game, what do? We get taken out for ice cream. When we're sad, we're given comfort foods, right? From a very early age, we're taught this emotional relationship with food. And so as we grow up, we have no way to separate that. And then you add in the impacts of the diet world out there, and how deprivation focused the diet world is, and how it brings food into this good, bad, right, wrong realm. And so our relationship with food just gets that much more complicated as a result of that. So kind of understanding and looking at this really, really complex emotional relationship that most of us have with food, and understanding that and having to break that down is really what it's about when we talk about weight management. It's not about calories in, calories out. It's about this complex relationship we have with food.
Is this a more recent phenomenon? I remember being a kid, and, I was a kid in the 70s, 80s, and, my mom absolutely, she'll never listen to this, so I can talk about it. Definitely fit every diet stereotype. She joined the jogging craze. She did I would say, very deprivation, calorie light, like everybody's mom was doing, I mean, it was just, that was kind of that time. And then as I was growing up into a teen, it was all about the magazines and the people that I saw on the cover and Ally McBeal. And, those were the big influences. Is it more of like the last couple of decades where these connections started being made, or have humans always been like this?
I I think both, but most people say, industrialization of food and the development of processed foods is when this became,
So really post-war, post-World War
yeah,
II.
yeah, it became much more of an impactful thing because prior to that, we just had food, right? We just we just had real food. We had food that grew or, food that could go bad, and we didn't have all this processed industrialized food. And as industrialization kind of played its role in food, food started to be created in a way that it could play to all of these things, right? It could prey on us and create these sort of addictive kind of components to it, or not make us full. So we could sit there and eat massive quantities of Oreos or whatever it may be. And, with that, we started to see more of this issue, or I guess this issue get more exacerbated
Right.
because of that. So
When
I
I
would
think
say
of my
around
college
then.
years, I think of Snackwell's cookies.
Yeah, exactly. The low fat diet
Yes.
cookie, right?
Yeah, where you ate the
And
whole box and then you
hmm
were still starving.
uh-huh. Yeah, exactly. And it Snackwells is one of those brands that really ties into all of these diet fads, right? We've gone through every iteration of a diet fad, and every food or food group or macro has been, villainized at some point in time. And that was when we were all on the low fat craze back
Hmm.
then, right? And then one day somebody said, "Oh no, wait, fat is not bad. Actually, fat is really good. That is a great thing for weight loss, but only if you're restricting something else." And it became sort of the next gen thing. So we're always going through all these cycles of villainizing or restricting. And that restriction actually ends up being a huge part of the problem. When we restrict something, we tend to give it a lot of power, right? I say
Hmm.
all the
And we
time, as
think
soon
about
as
it all
you
the
say
time.
that, yeah, as soon as you say, "I can never have pizza ever again," pizza becomes the most powerful thing in your universe. And it's all you think about. So to the point where when you do have pizza, you're not having a slice of pizza, you're having all of the pizza because of this restriction effect. So
Wow.
it ends up being hugely problematic and just, making that relationship with food even that much more complex.
Well, and then as we talk about just understanding more of the emotional link, our moods and our emotions literally can be linked to what we put in our mouth because of the effect
Mhm.
it has on our body. Can you
Yep.
explain that a little bit and why that's true?
Yeah, I mean, again, here we talk about how complex food is, but also how complex our bodies are, right? And so there's this whole field of nutritional psychiatry, which is this approach to mental health that recognizes the connection between, food and mind, and really healthy food and healthy mind. And, so a lot of us kind of know food fuels our body, but we forget that that same fuel can support mental functioning and in turn sort of guide our emotions.
Okay.
And so kind of connecting with that is really valuable, right? I mean, you know, food impacts our endocrine system, right? Our hormones, our neurotransmitters. And, everybody always talks about hormones in terms of how they feel, but they forget that food is a way that you can create that, right? Food can make us feel energized, or food can make us feel sluggish. Food can make us feel satiated. Food can make us feel deprived. And again, going back to the dieting thing, food can also make us feel confident and capable, or it can make us feel dependent and out of control. So what we eat and how we eat can impact how we feel. And there are foods that are just, you know, naturally designed to make our bodies function well, which makes us feel good. And then there are foods, more usually industrialized foods, that do the exact opposite. So really learning that and understanding that and using that to kind of guide your food decisions can be a really powerful way to make yourself feel better.
So if you're talking about an industrialized food, just for people who might not know what that is, you're talking about something that's in a package. Like if it came in a box and if on the back there are ingredients that have 5 syllables in them, that's kind of what you're talking about.
Well, generally, if you can't pronounce it or you can't actually go to the store and buy that ingredient,
Right.
that's a good indicator, right? If you look at a package and the ingredients are oats and apples and, monk fruit or something like that. Okay, maybe you can go buy those things. But if it's, partially hydrogenated vegetable oil and, isolated soy protein, if they're not things that you can buy at the store, it's probably a highly processed food.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good tip. That's a great way to look at it. All right. So, why don't we talk a little bit about like some common ways that we might feel and foods that might be problematic and foods that might work better for us? So, why don't we start with you're just going through an anxious, depressed kind of time.
Hmm.
What are the foods that possibly could help you feel a little bit brighter?
Well, with anxiety, I always, or frankly, depression too, I always talk about fiber and I talk about fermented foods. Because blood sugar is so related to anxiety, right? And with anxiety, we tend to have kind of spikes and drops.
Hmm.
And for a lot of people, this can correspond with our blood sugar spiking and dropping. And fiber and eating kind of a fiber-rich diet is one of the best ways to kind of keep our blood sugar levels like this as opposed to like
Yeah.
this, right? You want your blood sugar levels as stable as possible. And they're always going to do a little bit of that, but what you want is to avoid them having the high highs and the low lows.
I mean, you
And
say fiber, and I'm thinking Metamucil, but I'm guessing there's something a little bit more exciting.
I mean, I hope so. That does work, but yeah, I'm talking about whole grains. I'm talking about fruits and vegetables. I'm talking about legumes, beans and lentils. All of those kind of real foods that are fiber rich and that are going to keep your blood sugar level stable because fiber is slow to digest. And
Okay.
because of that, it keeps your blood sugars like this. When we eat quick release sugars, they're really easy to digest. And so we have this quick blood sugar spike and then we have a drop. So when you start your day off with a pastry or you start your day off with a high sugar cereal, you're starting your day with a blood sugar spike and then a blood sugar drop. And that's going to keep happening throughout the day because you're going to keep responding to that blood sugar
Hmm.
drop with more sugar, right? Or, processed flour. And when you start your day off with a high fiber breakfast, right? A whole grain bread and, maybe some eggs with some vegetables in them and some black beans or something like that. Now you're having a high fiber breakfast that's just going to keep your blood sugar stable, keep you calm, keep you kind of balanced, and you're going to keep gravitating towards that throughout the day. And that's also going to help keep your anxiety levels balanced throughout the
Interesting.
day.
I mean, most people don't want to have like a bowl of beans for breakfast, but is there a
Mhm.
hack that you use that you found is good for like adding them to something? Like I would add beans to a salad. I might add it in with the eggs if it was kind of easy to get. Like, is there a way like a hack for doing that?
Yeah, and I mean, one definitely to a salad. For breakfast, when we talk about legumes, I always talk about like eggs and black beans and salsa and guacamole and
Oh
having this
yeah.
kind of, yummy little like almost breakfast burrito type
Hmm.
breakfast, which is a great way to do that. But it can also just be a little side. You can have a little side of lentils with just about anything. You can have a lentil toast, something like that. But also it can be something that instead you have for lunch or dinner and then maybe you have a veggie omelet for breakfast, or maybe you have, almond butter and raspberries on a whole grain toast or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of different fiber-rich foods out there where you don't need to be having legumes for every meal, but they're just a wonderful option and a wonderful healthy option because they are one of these slow-release
Right.
carbohydrates. So they help keep your blood sugar steady.
Okay, so if you're having one of those blah times, again, I'm guessing you're like skip the Pop Tart.
I mean, ideally, the reason why your brain goes to the Pop Tart is because the Pop Tart is quick release sugar combined with fat and processed fat. And both of those things, one, give you a blood sugar spike, two, give you a little dopamine hit. And
Oh.
those are the things we want because they're quick. And so
Hmm.
that's why your brain goes there. But if you're not doing those and you're doing some of the other healthier foods all the time, your brain is going to stop asking for that. And
Huh.
so if you're eating fiber, if you're eating protein, if you're eating good fats, if you're eating omega-3 rich foods, and you're doing that regularly, your brain is going to start making the connection with that and feeling good and stop asking for the junk.
I don't know that
So,
I've really given that much thought to the idea of food giving you a dopa hit. Like I think
mhm,
of the phone and going through
mhm,
Instagram getting those little dopa
uh-huh,
hits, which really are not
yep,
great for you, but food does the same thing.
yeah, especially when you combine fat and sugar. So think about that again, pizza or a chocolate chip cookie or something like that that's going to give you both at the same time. You're going to get a little dopamine hit and it's going to happen pretty quick. And so, and again, we learn that at a very young age when we feel sad and we have a cookie and we're like, oh, this feels good. I feel better. We get a little dopamine hit.
Yeah.
But you can set your brain up to do that naturally by feeding it well regularly, as opposed to having it have those drops where it has to ask for it.
You've talked about how at the root of everything, and I feel like I'm seeing this in a lot of different parts of medicine right now, inflammation. We know
Mm-hmm.
so much more about it, and we know that it's
Mm-hmm.
responsible for everything from brain health to all the
Mm-hmm.
other disease risks that we have. And
Yep.
vitamin C is apparently a great way to fight inflammation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there are so many foods that help fight inflammation. And, when we talk about processed foods, processed oils, processed flours, processed sugars, all these things create or exacerbate inflammation in our body. And inflammation can disrupt the production and the function of brain chemicals like neurotransmitters that regulate our mood, right? Such as dopamine, like we talked about, and serotonin. And over time, inflammation can trigger the brain to produce symptoms like fatigue and appetite issues and reduced motivation and all of these things that we want to avoid. None of us are actually seeking. And inflammation tends to be responsible for this. And processed foods that are rich in omega 6s instead of omega 3s, like our highly processed oils and things like that, all kind of create inflammation and throw off that balance that we want in our body. So
Okay, obviously an orange or lemon, obvious citrus. What are some like other places that you can get vitamin C that we might not guess?
I actually always tell people strawberries, and people are surprised. Strawberries, have a lot more vitamin C than oranges. Oranges are what people
Really?
kind of gravitate to. I see, yeah, everybody does
Yeah,
that.
no, I had no idea.
When you talk about the same volume of strawberries to oranges, you're actually going to get more of a vitamin C boost than that. And people are also surprised to learn that you can get vitamin C from greens. Leafy greens like spinach and kale are a place you can get vitamin C as well. But citrus is the natural go-to, and citrus is wonderful. Citrus is a fantastic thing to put in your body. And also, while it's rich in tons of polyphenols, tons of vitamins and minerals, it's also fiber rich. So again, when you talk about all of the non-juicy component of an orange, right? The pulp, all the stuff in the orange that's not juice, that's all fiber. And so what that does, because people say, when we talk about blood sugar, they're talking about sugar. And so they always say, well, isn't fruit high in sugar? And yes, fruit has sugar, but it also has fiber. And
Mhm.
the fiber that you take in at the same time that you're taking in that sugar helps mitigate that blood sugar spike because you have that slow to digest fiber in there. So as a whole, a piece of fruit is sort of perfect, right? It's made to balance in your body and not cause anything to get out of whack. It only gets out of whack when we produce it or we change it or we alter its structure, right? Like like high fructose corn syrup is a really good example of that, right? It's basically taking what's natural in a fruit and making it very unnatural and
Mhm.
making it very high sugar and removing all of the fiber so that our body doesn't mitigate that blood sugar response. And instead, we see that massive spike.
We're talking about this like in terms of, grown-ups, but if you have kids with, say, something like ADHD, there are so many nutritional benefits to foods for all kinds of neurodiversity issues.
Yeah. And I say, anytime I work with parents, I say all the time, if it's not healthy for you, it's not healthy for them, and vice versa. Right. So, like I work with a lot of people who maybe they have issues because they're find themselves snacking on their kids' snacks. And they're frustrated with themselves because they're like, oh, I'm eating all this
Yeah.
crap. And I say all the time, if it's crap for you, it's crap for them.
Uh-huh.
Right. So the idea of looking at nutrition and looking at health and healthy eating and doing that with your kids too, it's exactly the same. I mean, the foods that are good for them, the foods that help keep them regulated, that help keep their brain functioning well, that help keep their anxiety low, that help stabilize their blood sugar, these are the same foods that do it for you. So
Hmm.
there's no reason why we need to be eating differently. Yes, we may have kids that are pickier, but
Right.
that doesn't mean we need to be giving them junk food or highly processed foods. It just means we need to be giving them foods that they're more likely to eat.
Where are you on caffeine? I'm a little worried about your answer, I'll be honest.
I mean, I'm sitting here with my cup of green tea, so this has
Okay.
caffeine in it. Um, so I mean, caffeine has value. Caffeine is something that is definitely abused and over abused in our society, and caffeine is definitely an anxiety trigger for people.
Hmm.
So anyone who is prone to anxiety or has an anxiety disorder, caffeine definitely can amp that up because it creates that feeling in our body, and that feeling is such a trigger for anxiety. So I usually just tell people to pay attention to it.
Hmm.
Like I do with all foods, right? How does it make you feel? After you have a cup of coffee, after you have a cup of tea, do you feel better? Do you feel worse? Is it short term? Is it long term? Does your anxiety ramp up? Do you have other symptoms that ramp up? Or on the flip side, maybe you feel more productive, maybe you feel more motivated. And then, even tied to that, let's look at coffee versus tea, right? Is there a difference between how those two things make you feel? Or, obviously, this massive influx of energy drinks, and how do those make you feel, right? Do they make you feel better for a short time, and then do you feel dependent? Do you feel stuck without them? And kind of looking at all of that. So I don't think it's, frankly, with any food or drink of any kind, I don't think it's a black, white, good, bad, right, wrong thing. I think it's just understanding it, understanding how it makes you feel, and then learning how to incorporate it in a healthy, moderate way. And same thing goes
Yeah, I
for
mean, like it's
caffeine.
really hard to be that honest with yourself. Is that kind of the biggest challenge, I guess, for most people to sit back and say, yeah, I feel really crummy all the time, but I notice that I feel crummier 15 minutes after I have this.
It can be. I mean, I talk to people about keeping what I call a food and mood log, and really kind of learning to connect the dots all day with what they're eating and how they feel. So if you're keeping a log and saying at this time I ate this and this and this and this, and then maybe every half an hour, you're also making a note of how you feel. Do you feel tired? Do you feel energized? Do you feel sluggish? Do you feel motivated? Do you feel deprived? Are you thinking about food? Do you feel more anxious? Do you feel less anxious? Right. And then, you have a week of this and you can start to connect the dots and really see, wow, every time I do that, about 20 minutes later, I feel this way. Or, I find myself going to this type of food when I feel this way. And really having this sort of, you know, spreadsheet, so to speak, where you can connect the dots and really see how these things
Hmm.
make you feel, it can become really, really rich data
Can
for
become
you
really
to,
motivating too.
yeah,
When
yeah.
you connect those dots. Vitamin D, I feel like I'm hearing about vitamin D everywhere I go. Are you
Mm,
taking enough? Do you have enough?
uh-huh.
The
Yeah.
sunshine vitamin.
Yes.
Why is vitamin D tied so much to your mood?
Well, vitamin D, or vitamin D deficiency in particular, I should say, is a great way to make us feel tired all the time. And when we feel tired, we don't feel great. If you go through an entire day feeling tired, your mood is going to be, really, really down. And vitamin D is tied to so many things. It's also very, very strongly tied to our immune system. All of our immune cells have vitamin D receptors on them. So, the more vitamin D we're getting, or the more, vitamin D appropriate our intake is, the stronger our immune system is. And when our immune system is strong, we tend to feel a lot better. We tend to feel a lot more balanced, right? All of this stuff is about keeping our body where it wants to be at its appropriate homeostasis. And the vitamin D issue is, one, it's very, very hard to get enough vitamin D from food.
Really?
It's very difficult. Yeah, I mean, they have some vitamin D enriched foods, and you can get it from some foods. You can get it from some meats, especially organ meats. You can get it from
Hmm.
spinach. You can get it
Eggs?
from a few different things. Yes, eggs, but it's hard to get enough. And they call it the sunshine vitamin. People think we get vitamin D from sunshine, but what we actually get is the ability to make vitamin D from sunshine.
Huh.
And in order to get enough sunshine to make enough vitamin D, we need to be exposed to sunlight at peak hours, right? Which is usually the hours that we're told to avoid for our skin.
Right. Man, you
Um,
can't win.
yeah, yeah. So at peak hours, with a lot of our skin exposed,
Hmm.
and so you
That
can
could get
see
dicey.
how that there's that. But also, it's hard to do in the winter time for
Right.
most people, and it's hard to do when we're concerned about the other risks of sun
Sure.
exposure.
So is
right?
that one that probably is worth supplementing for
It
most
is
people?
one that for most people is worth supplementing, especially in the winter. Taking a vitamin D3 supplement can be very, very helpful. If you live in a climate where you're just not outside much during the day, you're very far from the sun, or you're simply just not getting enough sun
Huh.
exposure, then yeah. And we've seen this more and more, with climate change, especially that vitamin D levels for most people are very, very low. So most people nowadays are vitamin D deficient.
Okay, well, I am taking my two little vitamin Ds before I go
Good,
into work in the morning.
good.
The other one that I feel like I read nonstop on my Instagram feed is magnesium.
Ah, I knew you were going to
Okay.
say that.
I get up very early. So magnesium's had a big
uh,
moment as well.
yes,
But I've seen magnesium linked to everything from better sleep to helping ADHD, also helping people dealing with food issues, eating
yeah,
disorders, or any kind
yeah,
of an off relationship with
yeah.
food. Why is magnesium so important and where should we be getting that?
Magnesium is involved in every chemical reaction that happens in our body.
Okay, that would be
And
why.
so that's why it is linked to every one of those things. And the problem is magnesium, we get magnesium from any food that grows in soil. So because magnesium comes from soil. So anything that grows is where we would get magnesium. The problem that most researchers are starting to find now is that so much of our soil has been overused and reused for so long that our soil has become magnesium deficient, which means the food growing in it is magnesium deficient. So even when we're eating all of those fruits and vegetables, we're not getting enough magnesium. So magnesium is another one that for most people is worth supplementing with.
Really?
Yeah. And
Huh.
there are several different forms of magnesium out there, and all of them are great. But the other reason why magnesium is probably so rampant in your social media feed these days is because of the benefit it has for sleep and anxiety.
Okay.
And magnesium has a natural relaxant component to it. And I often joke that it's like nature's Valium, that it just sort of relaxes our body and calms all of our neurotransmitters in a really positive way. And because of that, it can help with anxiety, but really sleep. And so I tell people magnesium is one of those few supplements that you actually want to be taking at night, not in the morning, because it has that natural relaxant component to it and does help with sleep. So some people take it in the morning and it makes them tired. So it's doing
Right.
the exact opposite of what we want it to do. And it's confusing because if you get a multivitamin, something multivitamin and mineral, it's going to have magnesium in it. So people think, I don't understand. But when you look at how much magnesium is in a multivitamin, it's usually a very small amount. So it's not enough to create that sleepiness component.
Hmm.
But
I'm
if you're
blanking
taking
on
just
the other supplement that we were all taking to help us go to sleep. Why am I that I know we've been told not to take lately? Not
melatonin,
Ambien, because that's not a supplement.
melatonin,
Melatonin.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So why is magnesium preferred over melatonin now?
So melatonin is something that your body produces. It's actually a hormone that your body produces. And magnesium is something that we get from food. So we need magnesium. We make melatonin. And melatonin, because it's part of your endocrine system, it's very tied to all of your other hormones. I always say that none of our hormones exist in a vacuum. All of them impact one another. And so melatonin levels are very related to things like cortisol, things like insulin. So melatonin is part of your natural circadian rhythm. And if your body is functioning optimally, your melatonin production basically stops in the morning. And as a result of that, we see an increase in things like cortisol and insulin, which we want in the morning. Cortisol is a very energizing hormone that we want in the morning. And insulin is something we want in abundance early in the day so that we can process our food appropriately. And then you see kind of this thing happen over the course of the day where those other ones start to drop. And after sunset, your melatonin levels start to increase, which is a cue for your body to sleep. And we want that. We want a balanced circadian rhythm. And we don't want to mess with that in any way. And taking melatonin can mess with that and can
Right.
also throw off our natural sleep processes where we don't learn to respond to our natural body cues, but we need sort of this external, influx of melatonin to do that. Also, a couple other problems with melatonin. One is we are sort of part of this more is better society. So when you look at melatonin supplements on the market, you'll
Right.
see 1 milligram, 3 milligram, 5 milligram, 10
Uh-huh.
milligrams. And so we're like, well, 10 must be way better than a one. But it can actually have this reciprocal effect when we take too much of it, that it can actually create sort of a feeling of hyperness in our body
Right.
instead of sleep. So if we are taking a supplement, one, we want much lower doses of it, 1 or 3 milligrams at most. Two, the time and place for melatonin is when our natural circadian rhythm is thrown off. And that's
Like
usually with
traveling?
travel. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
When we change time zones and we're not exposed to sunlight in the right way. So, the exposure to sunlight first thing in the morning is what sets that circadian rhythm in motion and triggers the late evening release of melatonin. So when we don't have that sunlight exposure in the morning, that's when all of that is thrown off. So when we travel and we just skip lots of time zones
Yeah.
and, get on a plane at night and land somewhere at night, that whole circadian rhythm is thrown off. And that's where melatonin supplementation is actually most
Very
effective.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say skip the gummies too, because you talk about like upping the dosage.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
like candy, like
Yeah.
candy. Okay. I have been a news anchor for more than 25 years now, and I have read so many health, wellness, weight loss, fitness stories, like my head would explode. But every single study can be summed up into one sentence, I've always said, and that is eat well and exercise for like great health. That always seems to be
Uh-huh.
like every major big study that comes from a big fancy university comes down to eat well
Sure.
and exercise. Is there a one sentence recommendation you could make to us to reframe how we look at foods and how they nourish not only our bodies, but our minds?
Well, it's funny when you said that, I was actually going to say eat well and exercise and add on in moderation.
In
Because,
moderation, yes.
because I feel like the problem with that is that we all take it to too much of an extreme. And whenever we go to one end of a spectrum, we tend to get this pullback to the other, right? And this is the problem I've always seen with every, extreme diet. We can do those diets for maybe 2, 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is we go 180 degrees in the other direction and rebound, right? When we say, I'm never eating sugar ever again, maybe we do that for a couple of weeks and then we go on a sugar binge as a result
Right.
of that, because we're not allowing those things in. We're labeling them as bad and wrong and can't have and restriction. And the idea of saying, I'm going to have something sugary a couple times a week is absolutely fine. It's just about recreating that healthy relationship with it, where you understand, again, how food makes you feel, and that maybe eating sugar every now and then, having a bowl of ice cream once a week or something like that, it's not going to make you feel horrible, and maybe the beneficial situation outweighs the physiological impacts of that. So
I love that.
paying
So
attention to the whole picture.
could we sum it to maybe 3 points to try to
Sure,
focus on?
sure, absolutely. I would say one, very much so, understand how food makes you feel. And two, to kind of learn how you're using food emotionally to help kind of break that emotional dependence on food. Like we talked about earlier, the idea of,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sad, so I'm going to eat this. Well, what could you do when you're sad that's different to help break that kind of emotional connection with food and start to learn how to build a healthier relationship with food in the process? So understanding how you use food emotionally, and then, understanding your body's needs and your body's response points, right? So, we can list out 1,000 super, super healthy foods, but that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean every one of those foods is going to be what makes your body feel good, right? So I use the example of broccoli. Broccoli is a wonderfully healthy food. We all know that. It's a cruciferous vegetable, but not everyone eats broccoli and feels great. Some people have a hard time with cruciferous vegetables and they make
Mm-hmm.
them feel sluggish and bloated. And so that's not necessarily the best food for you. Sure, we'll see it on every top 10 list of the foods to eat, but it's not black and white. You are unique. Your body is unique. And so I tell people all the time, you need to learn your own body and understand what actually makes it feel good and what doesn't. And it's not just listening to me saying, here's some really healthy foods, but it's about understanding how these foods actually make you feel and putting your own kind of eating plan together based on that and that knowledge. So it's really all about it's introspection and self-awareness.
Is there any one food that you would say, if I was going to ban something for the rest of my life, this is the thing I would take off the list?
I mean, I find soda tends to go like pop,
Mhm.
any soda tends to be very, very top of my list, diet or not, because there is absolutely nothing beneficial in that. It tends to create sort of dependence in us for 1,000 different reasons, whether it be about artificial sweetener or caffeine or sugar, any of these things. It's really hard to find a time and place where that has value or that makes sense. And for most people, it actually ends up being a really easy thing to remove from their diet because there's so many other things we can go to, whether it be, carbonated waters
Mhm.
or, other beverages that they can flavor themselves. So that seems to be there's no reason to have it in our diet
Yeah,
thing.
that's
It's
fair.
pretty easy to remove.
And I suppose when people do start, kind of like exercise, when you start an exercise program and you really commit and you start to either feel the difference, more energy, or you notice your body looks different, it kind of becomes a new addiction, only a healthier,
Yeah.
reframed
Yeah.
relationship with that. And I suppose food is the same way.
It can be, yeah. I mean, for somebody who's felt tired all the time and they change their diet and they start to feel more energized throughout the day, it becomes its own reinforcer, right? We want to feel good. We want to do things that make us feel good. It's just that we don't always know what those things are. And as we start to learn that, it reinforces itself and it motivates us to keep doing it.
And isn't it a nice idea to think that you could just choose some different foods to treat something before you get to a step of maybe having to go to a medication? Like,
Hmm.
why not
Oh
try it?
gosh.
That idea of nutritional therapy, which seems it's
Yeah.
also having a lot more of a moment these days.
Which I love. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you got nothing to lose, right?
Yeah. I mean, the whole cliche of like, let food be thy medicine, right? And, it's, there's so much that we can get from our food that a lot of us are not really taking advantage of.
Yeah. You have some really great resources online, and I know you've published several books as well. Can you let people know where they can learn more about your work and just learn from some of the things that you've put out there?
Sure. Yeah. My website's meonlybetter.com or theweightlasstherapist.com. And on all of those, I have access to all of my free downloadable guides on different things like, eating well and changing a relationship with food, addressing self-sabotaging behaviors, things like that. Also, links to my books should be on both of those sites as well. And then also my social media. I post almost every day with tips and tricks and tweaks and things like that that people can utilize in their daily life to help them start making some of these changes.
Oh, well, thank you so much. This was really fun. As you can tell, I'm totally into the topic and I'm probably going to talk to you for the next 5 hours.
Awesome. I love it. My favorite thing to talk about too.
Thanks for listening. You'll find even more episodes of Dying to Ask on Apple, Spotify, and Podbean. Take us on the go and don't forget to leave us a rating or review, and please share the show.